So pushing longevity to the side, what is the most exciting field for you, which is at the crossroads between medicine and technology at the moment? Is it regenerative medicine in general? Is it something like tissue engineering, bioprinting, perhaps stem cells, personalized medicine that you've mentioned? What is it that makes you most excited and most optimistic about the future, that you think we're almost there?
Well, depends where your almost there is, but I think it's a wrap of those things. I mean, we have these little buckets, and that's one of the challenges in the practice of clinical medicine, in the practice of biomedicine, science in general. Is we're very domain bucketed. I was back at Mass General Hospital for a reunion about 2 months ago, and the halls were the same, the departments were the same. In some ways, we need to reinvent how we define clinical fields because, you'll go see a gastroenterologist or a cardiologist or a dermatologist, and we're all these little buckets. And the future of healthcare, medicine, longevity is going to be integration of convergent fields and where they touch up upon each other. So it's not just personalized medicine or regenerative medicine. So I'm most excited about where they come together. So the future of personalized medicine will be in one vision, and this isn't the exact solution. Let's say taking the world of stem cells, the ability to take any skin cell that you have, reprogram that to be the equivalent of an embryonic stem cell, because we all have the same DNA in our cells as we were in an embryo. It's how they're turned on. It's not just the base genome, it's the expression of those genes that are important. So we can now reprogram almost any cell in your body to go back to being an equivalent of an embryonic stem cell, the iPS cell, induced pluripotent stem cell. That's a field that's moved really exponentially from being this sort of modeled in mice to now human cells to being very quicker and more efficiently being able to be done, not yet in an FDA safe, clinically applied way, but we'll soon, I think, get there. Combined with, so that's personalization in your own cells. Two, we need to make those, let's say, in an organ that fits you, whether that's a kidney or a liver or more simple structures like just last year, the first trachea was reconstructed essentially with sort of 3D printing, seeded with the patient's own progenitor cells, not from iPS cells, but progenitor cells, could then essentially regrow a personalized trachea, a pretty simple, essentially organ, hollow. It doesn't need to be vascularized, but that could then replace one that was damaged by cancer. So that's an early example of something that's happened in a couple situations, in a couple case studies. But it's where those merge together, the ability to bank your own stem cells, maybe create your own cardiomyocytes, hepatocytes, neural cells, put those into the constructs of where we can use those clinically. Because we can't just squirt in most stem cells and have them grow into a kidney or liver or a patch of heart. They need to be integrated with bioprinting. And maybe we need to print your own personalized organ, in a sense, with different layers of the molecules, the structure, the different types of cells coming together to grow a version of that can be implanted. Or maybe that's going to be printed internally. That we don't need to be a failure to our imagination to think this would be printed in addition, plugged in. Maybe it's a matter of just reprogramming the cells in your body to regenerate that liver or kidney endogenously. That will be the real holy grail from that side. So I guess I'm most excited about the integration of 3D printing, bioprinting, stem cells, personalization. That's sort of one example where it can all come together. I'll just mention one other sort of big sea trend that pulls these things together from the less medical side is that of the digitization of health. We're now in this crux on the hockey stick of digitizing records. I'm not sure in Canada, but in the US, we're less than 30% of medical records are digital. And that's changing through the incentives that the Obama administration and others have set up. And I also like to quote one of our Singularity U and FutureMed faculty, Dean Ornish, which is we don't practice evidence-based medicine, we practice reimbursement-based medicine. We get, doctors are going to do what they're incentivized to do. A doctor's not going to do a Skype call with their patient like we're doing there unless they have some way to bill for it. I mean, I might be the nicest doctor in the world. I can spend all day Skyping with my patients, but if I'm not paid for it, I can't run a clinic. Yeah. So we need to have the insurance companies and others get on board with technology like the digitization of records and getting people incentivized to doing that, which is why the Obama administration is paying $40,000 to have doctors go sometimes through that painful process of going through paper charts to electronic. And then when we have electronic records, they can emerge into electronic systems, not just records, where they can then crowdsource the data and know your genetic information, compare you anonymously and privately to others that are similar to you in certain ways, and know that other patients in Canada who have their own internet shows who take this drug and these genetics do particularly well with this approach, as an example, and learn to iterate much more quickly, or take lessons that are learned and published in New England Journal and get them to the clinic much more quickly. So the digitization of data, the ability to share it, crowdsource it, socially connect it. There are now Facebooks for doctors like Doximity and others to connect clinicians. All those things together, with the digitization of your genetics, your proteomics, and hopefully eventually connected to smart AI-enhanced systems, as exemplified by the folks at IBM Watson, who are now applying AI to healthcare, as have others, can be big game changers.
Fantastic. So time is advancing, and I know you're a very busy guy, so I'm going to try to wrap it up with the next couple of questions. But let me just ask the reverse coin of this question. Is there something that you're most worried about? I mean, you said you're an optimist, and I have the highest respect for that, but what is the thing that concerns you the most within that field? Is there any such thing at all to begin with?
Well, again, everything across healthcare is so broad. There's no sort of always one thing. But I would say one of the things I'm sort of concerned about, but I'm a bit of an optimist towards, is that if we're in the Western world and it's all driven by the payer who pays for it, there's sort of that cynical thing. You might have the coolest new toy, gadget, medical device, drug. The question is, who's going to pay for it? There's a lot of great innovations that have come out of SU or medical incubators. The question is, who's going to pay for it? And part of the innovation that needs to happen is pulling together, not having insurance companies change their view of, well, I'm not going to bother doing prevention because they're going to change insurance plans in 2 years anyway. But when we start getting the big Kaisers of the world, the VA systems, some forward-thinking payers, insurance companies, going, wow, if we start really focusing our exponential technology skill sets on better connectivity, social networks that encourage better behavior, whether that's preventing disease or managing chronic disease in smarter ways, and enabling the cross-fertilization and rewarding innovation and new companies and new ideas earlier in that process. So they don't need to spend $1 billion to get that blockbuster drug out there, that one-size-fits-all drug, but can start personalizing healthcare and medicine from the detection, prevention, therapy side, and starting to play together. And I think we're sort of in this one big boat wherever we are in the world, that we need to innovate or die, in a sense, and to move into this world of abundance that Peter Diamandis talks about. Takes some sort of bigger structural, sometimes policy realms, and not falling into the fear camp, the fear of medical privacy data, or, oh my God, what are we going to do with synthetic biology and create the next, killer virus? Those things we need to pay attention to and be mindful of and plan and think towards, but not to fall into the fear side. So I'm not sure if that answers the question. I would say I think it's a matter of pulling together a lot of the convergent, sometimes folks in parties that don't play well together and are sometimes going to lose. I mean, some fields will be disintermediated by these exponential game-changing technologies. There's a new book out by Eric Topol called The Creative Destruction of Medicine. A lot of fields of medicine are going to get destroyed in some ways, and there are going to be a lot of powerful lobbies and players against that. I sometimes give the example, not to make fun of dermatologists, but dermatologists are great doctors, but they do pattern recognition. That might be supplanted by my simple app that can take a picture of most rashes or moles and go, oh, that's a melanoma, that's not. It then's going to send to the smart dermatologists. They're going to get a feed of patients who have real problems. But some fields are going to change dramatically. Radiology and others that are going to be, in some cases, augmented, but in some cases supplanted by smart technology. And there's going to be a lot of friction there as those things meld. So there's a note of caution, hopefully later with optimism, that we can lead to a better biomedical healthcare world. But some people are going to sort of initially lose in that, and some people are going to have challenge with the change.
Fantastic. So the very last question that I always ask of my guests is this. Is there a single message or a single point that you would like our viewers and listeners to take away from from our interview today? What's the most important one thing?
I think one of the themes I've learned from spending time at Singularity University and from sharing the FutureMed Program with some extraordinary folks and teammates and collaborators is that taking the medical healthcare, neuroscience focus, which again is very broad, is that, wow, there's some incredible things happening across technology, and that you don't need to be a doctor or a biomedical informaticist or a pharmacist or to play a role in health and medicine and improving healthcare, however you want to define that. And that you can be a person in games, in IT, in mobile, in AI, in robotics, in nanotech, in big data, almost anything, and apply your passion in that area to some degree in healthcare, or see how it can play a role in healthcare, and see on all these exponential trends it might plug in now or in a couple of years. And to think about how you might leverage your own skill set, experiences, technological abilities to affect in positive ways, prevention, diagnosis, therapy, treatment, and we can really end up with a much better world across the spectrum, but particularly in the medical healthcare world, by sort of applying our different skill sets and imaginations and convergences to create a new and better healthcare world.
Daniel Kraft, thank you very much for taking time to be with us today.
Thanks. Great to be here. Hope to see you in future adventures, and hopefully you can all connect with us in person or otherwise through Singularity University and FutureMed, FutureMed2020.com. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Singularity.